Hello students, this is Taranum Jahan, starting up with your first chapter of Geography, Resources. So let's begin with our first chapter. So what are resources? Anything which are useful are termed as resources, which are useful in our daily life is termed as resources. Now how the sources become resources are being discussed under this chapter. So by looking at this image, you can understand that how the sources which are naturally available to us has been converted into resources. So here trees are the source which are naturally available. We have converted that source into the paper, cloth and rubber and so on. In the same manner, the water which is naturally available to us, we have converted into a resource by using it for cooking, washing the clothes and the utensils. So the source which is naturally available has been converted into a resource which is used by us in our daily life. It is an useful resource now. So these are certain terms which has been used in your textbook. What is utility or usability? You can say it as utility or a usability. Now what is utility? A resource which is in the form of object or a substance like rickshaw, bus, electricity, water, etc. is called as utility. Value. Value means worth. Things become resource only when they have a value. So here the utility and the value. Like for example, you can say that utility or usability is like water, vegetable, textbook, etc. Use it as a value. All these useful resources have their own value. Like we cannot imagine our life without water, tree, etc. So value of the resource can be classified into the economic value and aesthetic value. Now what is aesthetic value? Means a value that add to a beauty to the surrounding, like trees have its own value and gives a beauty to the earth. Economic value, with the same example I'll explain, if the same trees which is giving a beauty to the surrounding even have an economic value, like they provide us oxygen, they provide us essential elements like rubber, paper, etc. So economic value sometimes is added in such a way that they are patent. Patent is nothing but something you have discovered it by yourself. So this is what an example of the economic value and aesthetic value. So these are the terms which has been used in your textbook, the utility or the usability. Value, again value is classified into two, that is aesthetic value and economic value. Then what is aesthetic value? It has been explained, and what is economic value? It has been explained to you. So is it clear now? Now what is resource? Now you will definitely understand it easily as we have discussed the terms utility, value, aesthetic value and economic value. Now what is resource? Anything which has some utility or usability for us is called as resource. Anything which are useful in our daily life is called as resource. Whatever things we are using in our daily life, water, electricity, transport, or vegetables, or any of the household things, if you see, look around your household things, whatever we are using in our daily life is nothing but a resource. So all the resources have some value or a worth in our life. Some resources like gold have an economic value, and some resources like beautiful landscape, it has an aesthetic value. But both are important as they satisfy human needs. A substance can be changed into resource by two very important factors. Now, who changes this substance? The source which is available to us, how we are going to change it into resource? By applying the two very important aspects, which is time and technology. A substance can become resource by, like we have discovered a fire, cooking, for burning, isn't it? So we have used our knowledge We humans have used our knowledge by rubbing the stones. We have discovered fire, isn't it? So this is a new invention. Then discovering of wheel for transport, new invention. This is all the new technology. Time, earlier what we were, now what we are. So the time and technology event describes how that we have converted the sources that are available to us naturally. We have converted into resource by using the time and technology, the skills and knowledge of a human. So resource can be economically valuable with time. So every invention or a discovery leads to one other discoveries or inventions, like we have discussed, like fire for cooking and a wheel for transport, converting water to electricity like hydroelectric power generation. So these are the new inventions. Thus every substance based on time and technology can be converted into resource. Now let's begin with the chapter. We have just finished with an introduction of resource. Now let's discuss in detail what is resource. So resource is here classified into natural resource, human made resource and human resource. Now we'll discuss one by one in a separate side headings. Resources. The types of resources, again, they are divided into natural resource, human resource, and human made resource. What are natural resources? The resources which we get from nature without any modification. We are utilizing the resources without any modification are called as natural resources, like green plants, vegetables, fruits, air, water, wind, etc. Human made resources. Human made resources are the resources which are made by the resources or developed by the human in order to satisfy their own needs. So those resources are called as human made resources. For example, bridges, roads, machines, vehicles, etc. Human resource. People's knowledge and skills, quality and ability to work around the various issues are called as human resource. For example, doctor, teachers, politicians. They are providing the quality of skills which they are having. Whoever the human is having certain qualities and which are being provided by them to the different people as per the services are called as human resource. Different types of natural resources. Natural resources are classified into two: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Now, what are renewable resources? The resources which can be reused are called as renewable resources, like water, soil, sunlight, etc. Non-renewable resources are those of which are of limited stock. Once if it is exhausted, then it takes thousands of years to renew it, like coal, petroleum, natural gas, etc. Now we'll see the classification of the natural resources on the basis of development, distribution, origin, and stock. Each under one side heading will discuss separately about the natural resources. So, natural resources are further categorized on the following basis. Natural resources on the basis of development. So again, the natural resources on the basis of development are classified into two: potential resource, actual resource. Now what are potential resources? Potential resources are the resources that are not being used at present but could be used in future once technology for that is properly developed. So entire quantity may not be known. For example, the uranium reserves in Ladakh, windmills in Netherlands are the example. These are the things which we don't know how much it is there in nature, but we are keeping it for the future use. So these are called as potential resources. Then comes the actual resources. Actual resources are the resources that are being used in present and the whole quantity of it has been known to us, like the coal and the petroleum. On the basis of origin, natural resources are again classified into two: biotic and abiotic. Now, what are biotic resources? Biotic resources are the resources which are derived from the living organisms like plants and animals. Example: milk, leather, and timber, etc. are the example of biotic. Abiotic. Abiotic are the resources which are derived from the non-living things like soil, rocks, and minerals. On the basis of distribution, natural resources are again classified into ubiquitous and localized resource. Here, the natural resources, on the basis of distribution, if we say the resources are not equally distributed in the earth, it depends upon the number of physical factors like topography, climate, and altitude. Like we don't get iron ore everywhere. There are certain regions where we find iron ore. We don't find copper everywhere. Where there are certain regions where we find copper, like diamond. We don't find everywhere. There are certain regions only there we find diamonds. So here there are certain natural resources which are not equally distributed in the earth. They are unequally distributed in the earth. So these resources are classified into ubiquitous and localized resources. Now, the ubiquitous resources are the resources that are found everywhere on the earth. Now, what are those? We find land, water, air everywhere on the earth. So this is ubiquitous resources. Now, localized resources are the resources which are only found in certain regions, are called as localized resources like ore, copper, diamond, gold, etc. Human-made resources. Human-made resources are the resources that undergo some drastic change because of the human intervention. Because of the needs, the skills, and the knowledge and ability, they change these resources as per its need. Like steel, a man-made resource is made of processing iron ore. We have first got the iron ore naturally, then we have converted that iron ore into steel, isn't it? So iron ore was a natural resource available to us. With the skills and ability and the knowledge, we have converted into steel. Some examples of human made resources are like bridges, buildings, railways, and machines. As per the need of the human, by utilizing its skills, ability, and knowledge, they have made certain things in order to make use of those resources in their daily life. So, technology is also a human made resource. Human resource. Human resource refers to the quality, the ability, the mental and the physical ability of the people is called as human resource. With their skills, with their knowledge, with their technology, they have improved the quality of the human life. With the education and the health has improved now, we can see the improvement in the education and the health. With the new skills, they have created new things. They have the people, these are the people who have best utilized the natural resources. They have created the new things. They have, like how we have seen the example, like iron ore was given as a natural resource. With the skills and the ability that the human has changed it into steel, isn't it? In the same manner, many of the natural resources which have been given to us by the earth, they have converted into a new things. Like the water has been given, with the water they have converted the hydroelectricity. So with the skills and technology, they are converting the natural resources into more useful and a creative resource. So here we conclude that even the people, as a people themselves, are as a resource over here. The human resource development, we call them as human resource development. Conserving the natural resources. As we have seen that the natural resources are renewable and non-renewable. So most of the natural resources are limited in stock. That means that they are not renewed for a in a short period of time. It takes a very thousands of years in order to renew them. So those resources are limited in stock. So conservation of the resources refers to the resource that natural resources has to be used carefully so that in the time it can be used by the future generation too. It is not that only we should enjoy those natural resources in such a way that it should not be available to the future generation. So use it in such a way, in a careful way, that even our future generation should enjoy those natural resources. So carefully utilizing the resources and balancing the need to use the resources, we have to conserve them. So due to the excessive exploitation of water, shortage of water is being faced by many places. Due to excessive use of coal and petroleum, now we are going to be exhausted in a near future. So we have used it in such a way that now we are scared that whether our future generation is going to use them or not, the water, the natural gas, petroleum. So it is our duty to ensure that all the uses of renewable resources are sustainable. Sustainable in the sense it should be available to the future generation. Use it carefully and love the nature. Don't damage the nature. So there are many ways of conserving the resources. Each person can contribute by following the three things in order to have a sustainable development. I will definitely say in the last slide what is sustainable development. The what is the three things? That is, reduce the consumption, use it properly, carefully, reduce it, the consumption of water, the petroleum, so that it can be made used by the future generation. To reuse it, reuse as many time as possible, recycle it, discard the items wherever possible, recycle the products. In that way you can conserve the natural resources which are renewable. Sustainable development, this has the word which we have come across while I was explaining you regarding the conservation of the natural resource. So this is very important. This can come in the 2 marks or a 3 marks to you, and you should know how to write about this. So the sustainable development is nothing but to utilize the resources, the non-renewable resources, the resources which takes a long period of time in order to get it renewed, the thousands of years. There are certain resources, like I said, the petroleum, the gas, water, all these resources now we have utilized in such a way that we are facing the scarcity of it. Like now we are having conserve water, conserve trees. Why we people are having those slogans right now? Because we are not utilizing it properly. Now we are scared that whether our future generation is going to enjoy it or not. That is the reason why now we are having a slogans of conserving the water, conservation of the plants, conservation of the environment, because now we human animals have destroyed the environment. So sustainable development always talks about this, to utilize the resources in such a way that it should be made available to the future generation. We are living in an ecosystem. We are interdependent on each other, whether it is plants, animals, or we humans. We are interdependent on each other. And we should utilize the resources in such a way that these resources are should be made available to all this ecosystem too, plus our future generation too. So this is called as a sustainable development. We should have a balance while utilizing the resources, especially the non-renewable resources, which takes thousands of years in order to renew them. So utilize the resources in a very common, balanced way. Hope, students, that you have understood the chapter resource, as this is an easiest chapter from the geography. We have seen regarding the natural resources, how it was classified, the resources, the natural resource, the human made resource, and the human resource, how the natural resources was classified into renewable and non-renewable resources. We have seen the example of it. Then the classification of the resources on the basis of development, on the basis of origin, then on the basis of distribution we have discussed. We have discussed the classification of the resources, then the resources conservation, how to conserve the resources we have seen. We have also discussed about the sustainable development. So all these things, just we have talked about the resource and the conservation of it. Hope you have understood the chapter. Do revise it and try to answer the questions what are being given to you.